Hello and welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lilli Badcock and I am a transformational confidence coach and founder of the Confidence Academy Members Club. I know that you're stuck in a cycle of feeling anxious, lost and frustrated, but I'm here to tell you that the anxiety you're experiencing is not a weakness. In fact, it's a message. It's a sign that you are a precious soul with an important mission to fulfill. When you stop feeling afraid of the anxiety, you get your power back. You remember just who you are and why you're here. The fact is that the world needs your gifts, and the time to rise is now. Join me as I help you to navigate through those feelings of frustration and anxiety so you can get on with living your life exactly as it was meant to be lived, full of inspiration, fun, and in full alignment with your soul purpose. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the Confidence Academy podcast. My name is Lilli Badcock and today I was joined by Leslie Stewart, who is an intuitive coach all the way from America. And we did things a little bit backwards today in that we started the conversation, as I always do, giving them an outline as to how the podcast interview was going to go. And we immediately got into an amazing conversation and so much good stuff came through that I decided to just post it as it was. So I have not edited this at all, and there isn't even a proper introduction at the beginning, which is why I'm doing it now. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I know I've been missing in action. I know there have been some big gaps in between episodes, but that is all about to change. I've got some amazing guests lined up for 2019, and I'm so excited for the new direction that this podcast has taken. So thank you to everyone who continues to listen to this podcast and to support the work that I'm doing. As ever, if you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to me at lillibadcock@gmail.com. But in the meantime, sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode. So the podcast took a slightly, I don't want to say it took a different turn, because it's still helping people that suffer with anxiety and it's still helping people to build confidence. I just think last year I got really clear around, first of all, why the anxiety was showing up, and then second of all, what the confidence was actually for. Initially, I think it was like quite a surface-based thing. I thought I was going to help people be more confident at work or be more confident in relationships or walking into a bar on their own or whatever. And I realized last year that actually it was more about being confident to be who you are at your heart and soul, and enabling you to do the work that you came here to do without fear, and being able to blaze that trail. So it's gone deeper into purpose, basically.
I love it. Yeah.
So the guests I've invited on now, last year, it launched in November 2017, and all of last year we had amazing episodes, and it was all very much based around coping with anxiety, and it was sharing stories of people that have done that. And I actually think that was the perfect foundation to lay, because a lot of people initially are just struggling with that, and that's all they can see.
Yeah.
And they don't even know that they can recover from that. So the first year, I think, has been about showing people that doesn't have to stop you, it doesn't have to slow you down, and it certainly doesn't get to define you. And now this year is about, right, why did that anxiety show up, and what does it really mean, and how can we step more into that? So it's exciting.
That is exciting. Can I ask, so are they already self-identified, Lilli, as, a woman who's waking up to, oh my gosh, I want more meaning in my life, or I feel this calling?
Yeah, I think it's basically their versions of me. I think they are definitely dealing with anxiety, but they have this niggle. There's a niggle inside that that there's more to this, and not from a woe is me kind of place, but more like a, I know there's more to this. Like I'm grateful for so much in my life, but there is definitely something else that I'm supposed to do. I don't know that they've made the connection yet that that's why the anxiety is showing up. I don't think necessarily that's true, but they know their anxiety isn't the end of the road. They just don't know where to go with that.
Yeah.
So I think they're kind of, the way I describe it, I think I'm here for the people who are just waking up. So it's like they have one eye open, like they've just gone, hey, oh, what? am I doing something? What is it? And you know how you're really bewildered when you just wake up in the morning and you're a bit disorientated and like, wait, where am I? What am I doing? Like, was that a dream? Was that real? That's my people. That's who I'm here for. And so I think they've probably got maybe a level of it, but they're not maybe giving themselves permission, or maybe they think it's too out there, and they definitely feel like they're the only one that thinks that. So this is to let them know that they're not. And I honestly feel like there was a collective awakening last year towards the end of the year. And I think there are so many of us, and actually not just people that are waking up to purpose for the first time, but it's a lot of us that were already aware there was a purpose. It's now become urgent. It's you can't fanny around anymore. Like it's now. The time is now. You step up and you get it done. It's exciting. And a lot of the people I spoke with one-to-one, I said to them, it felt like we were all from the same collective, like almost a pod. And it's almost like the call got put out, that the pod got activated, and now is the time. And we've all been called in, and everyone's anxiety shot through the roof. If there was any amount of alignment that wasn't in alignment with what they were supposed to be doing, anything that wasn't quite right has just been shown for what it is. And, you know, we were given that choice. So
and when you get aligned, and when you get aligned, the anxiety and fear can sometimes amp up because I learned from someone, I forget who said this, but a teacher for a long time, that said, you know, the bigger your purpose, and this can get tricky because it's not about the ego, but sometimes when something's really built up, you can get on the path and you can feel even more fear as you're getting close, you know. So it's interesting. I think.
I mean, I'm still navigating it, but
so am I.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? But I started the podcast from a place of, I'd struggled with anxiety and I'd learnt to manage it. So that's where the podcast came from, because it was like, I'm not saying I'm over anxiety. I'm saying that I get it now and it doesn't stop me. So even if I'm having a really bad wobbly day, I'm no longer afraid of that. I know there are things I can do. So that's where it started. And then right in the middle of all of that, I had a humdinger of a panic attack that came out of nowhere. And I was just this absolute wreck going, what? Like, I mean, the universe has a real sense of humor, but it was almost like, you thought you had it in the bag. And actually, do you know what I think? It was almost like I'd started to lose sight of just how desperate you are when you're in that place. And from that place, I think I wasn't being as impactful because I'd forgotten how lonely it feels and how awful it is, and how it doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing or how much you think you have it all together, it's going to take you down. And I went through all of that, and it was a real reminder. And even in the aftermath, like I'd literally just had it, I journaled, and I was still able to affirm, I know I'm okay, and I know this was a reminder, and I'm grateful for that. And I feel like shit, but I'm going to do a podcast about this. and I just vowed, you know, this is, I knew it wasn't the end. And I think that's the only thing that separates me maybe from someone who hasn't realized that yet, because in the beginning it was like, oh my God, this is something now that's going to define who I am. It means I can't get a job, like, and all the stuff that goes with that. I now see it so differently. And I'm not necessarily saying everyone with anxiety is in that place, but I actually think they are. I just wouldn't say that. But I really believe everyone came for a purpose. I don't believe anyone came for no reason. And I think if anxiety is showing up, it's an opportunity. And I know not everyone is ready to hear that, but for the ones who are, that's why we're here.
Amen. And I think it's so powerful. The more transparent everyone is. I follow, I don't know if you're into astrology at all.
A little bit. I don't know a lot about it, but I'm very interested in it.
Okay, there's a guy who's really phenomenal with it, Leo King, David Palmer, I think is his real name.
Yeah.
He's been behind his brand for like 7 years. And really quick, just to tell you, he's so public. I mean, he's created a multi-million-dollar business now, has his own app, all this stuff. He's so public that he struggled with anxiety for a long time, and it still can take him down. And he does like he's a double Leo. Leos want to be in the spotlight, so all he does is video. I mean, he's constantly out there. Is my point.
Yeah.
And it's just so powerful. I think when all of us share, that we're not, you really don't have to be a step ahead of someone to be a impactful teacher, leader, whatever. Right.
And I actually, and because for a long time I was in this place of, oh, you can't help these people yet because you're still navigating. And then what I realized was, no, you can help these people because you're navigating. Because you're still in the trench. You didn't climb out yet. And I really, and that also came from my own personal experience of being on what I would call the crash of the wave, when you kind of crash back down. And I was looking for, inspiration, guidance, and the people that I resonated the most with were the people who were saying, do you know what, me too. The ones with very, very shiny appearing lives with it all together resonated not one bit, because it just made me feel like they were so far from where I was in that moment. And it wasn't from a place of, oh, I don't think I can ever have that, but it was more like, that's too much of a leap for me right now. I just need to know that somebody is okay, even if they're still suffering with this. And I realized that I get to be that person. And I still get to thrive. I still get to win, because that was a navigation as well. Because I think for a while I was keeping myself stuck for that same reason, because it was like, oh, I don't get to get better. I have to stay in this place, so it's been navigating that and actually being able to grow, but stay connected with the memory of what that feels like, so I can still help people that are in that place.
Yes. Amen. Yes.
And would you say you're an intuitive coach, or you're a coach and you're intuitive and you're a healer and you've put sales here as well? Is that all a separate thing, or you're an intuitive healing sales coach?
Well, I think we bring all of ourselves. So I've had a career in sales. Yeah. I became a coach. Yeah. Then I found myself getting called into clairvoyant intuitive training. So I struggle with titles sometimes, because I'm everything. I feel like I'm kind of a guide and a, mentor. And so you could call me an intuitive coach and energy healer.
Cool. Yeah. And the first thing we'll talk about is exactly that, because ever since I stepped out of the woo closet, I'm saying, as an intuitive, I offered to do some intuitive readings, because I honestly didn't know if I could. And I mean, I think I did know I could, because something made me step up, but I was very nervous to charge any money. It was like, oh, I don't know if I can actually tell people I do this. Like, I'd rather it was just a subliminal thing. But I felt the call to do it. So I offered a few free calls, and I've done about 50 now. And I would say 100% of those women, they were all women as it happens. And 100% of those women all said the same thing. They were all struggling with, what direction do I take? Because I can help people like this, or I can help people like that. And I know about this, and I know about that. And what am I? And it's this, and I'm the same. And it's this realization, exactly as you said, that you're all of those things. And how you help someone, they don't care how you help them, just help them. Just remember, focus on your purpose and be you. And whether, you're going to help someone with sales 1 minute and then do an intuitive reading the next, like, nobody cares. They just want your help. So we'll definitely dive more into that. I have an amazing analogy for that came through in one of the readings. And then we'll just see where it goes. So that's how we're going. So,
awesome. Okay.
So we will lay it down
with a podcast, by the way, because I want to start one. Yeah,
do it. It's so easy. It's so easy, and it's so fun. Like, I couldn't believe how easy it was. And when I started mine, I'm not even sure I knew what a podcast was. Like, I can't remember. All I know, I'd heard the word podcast, but I never listened to any. I didn't have any on my phone. I didn't really get it. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but I do remember that at the time it was at the end of October, and I had literally just been beating myself up that I wasn't where I wanted to be, that I hadn't stepped up fully, and blah, blah, blah. And I was already getting into this depressed state about how I was going to hit another Christmas and still not have met my goals and still not be any further forward. And something nudged me in that moment and was like, well, you could carry on thinking that, or you could remind yourself that actually it is only October. There are still 2 full months. And the thing that got me was the message that when the shift comes, it will be 1 second in 1 minute of one day where everything changes. So what are you waiting for? Why do you think that you have to wait 2 months, 6 months, a year? What are you waiting for? Because when the shift happens, it's going to be so slight. It's just going to change, and everything will change in that moment. Why not decide to have that moment be now? What are you waiting for? So I made a decision. I didn't know what to do, but I thought, well, any little nudge I get, any little wondering or any little idea, I'm just going to do it. Even if I don't know how, and even if I can't figure out why I would do it, and even if I can't see how it's even going to help, I'm just going to do it. And I now know that was my intuition. And even the decision to do that was obviously intuition. But at that time, I didn't know what it was. And something popped into my head. I think somebody must have posted something about a podcast. And something just popped in my head where I went, well, I could probably do that. And then it was like, well, the rule is if you have a nudge, do it. So I was like, okay, I don't know how. And it was like, that doesn't matter. You have to do it anyway.
Yes.
And I had a rule, like you had to do it. You weren't allowed to say, I don't know how. If you don't know how, figure it out. Like all it takes is a Google search or a question for someone. And so off I went. And like the first thing was I didn't have a microphone. So I was like, oh, I don't have a microphone. And then I realized that I'd actually bought my brother a microphone for Christmas the year before. So I rang him and said, do you need that or can I have it back? So I snaffled it back and I've still got it now. And yeah, I basically did not allow myself to get overwhelmed. And in the moment, I could see clearly every moment where I would normally have quit. I just didn't allow myself to. So all of that to say, do a podcast.
I love that. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and there's a great saying I love. All my clients know. I always say, forget about the how right now. Mm-hmm. And so I like to say, F the how for now.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, because the how's gonna figure. Life's gonna help you with the how.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need to know. And actually, our version of the how is usually so minuscule compared to how amazing it can be.
Yes.
Our little human brains can't even comprehend how amazing it could be. The other thing I want to say though, and this only came about a few weeks ago when somebody random signed up for one of my free calls, and I say somebody random, it wasn't a name I recognized. Mm-hmm. And when I got her on the call, she was gushing, going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm actually talking to you, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, right. She said, I've been listening to your podcast since last Thanksgiving. And I was like, well, that would be when I launched then, because it was November that I launched. So she'd probably started listening from one of the early episodes. And she went, I've listened to everyone. She said, I was in such a dark place when you put that out there. And she said, I heard the first episode and I was hooked and I've never missed an episode since. And she said, you've helped me through some really tough times. And I just went cold because I was like, do you know what? I launched that podcast just assuming nobody was listening, telling myself constantly that I was getting it wrong, that no one was paying attention, that nobody would listen and blah, blah, blah. And even the first episode was supposed to be an interview and then that went wrong. And again, I was like, oh, well, I could quit, but I'm not allowed. So I'm just going to, I just went on the fly. I pressed record and I just talked and I ended up sharing 10 steps to overcome anxiety. It was all I could think of. And that is still the most downloaded episode out of all the ones I've done. Wow. And the point is, my episode was helping someone the minute I pressed publish,
Yes.
in spite of all my fear. And so it's the same for you.
Beautiful.
There's people who need what you've got right now, and they want you desperately to get over yourself and get it out there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Do it. And let me know when you do, and I will.
Yeah.
We can share it.
I'll
we can
have
put
you
a link
on.
in the notes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I feel like we should just share this whole conversation and just be like, oh, by the way, hi, this is the podcast. I think we'll just do it because, like, you know, normally I talk about mundane stuff like what I had for dinner, but that was actually quite a good conversation already. So I'm just going to say at this point, hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm going to do an official intro and I'll bolt it onto the front of this, but I think let's just keep it going because it feels like everything went like the minute we came on. So
love it.
Let's not mess with it. So if you're tuning in and if you're listening on the podcast, hello. And I feel like I have to apologize at this point because I've been a little bit missing in action, a little bit AWOL. But I'm not beating myself up about this. I did have a baby last year, and it's about choices, isn't it? And about priorities. And so some of my time, a lot of my time, has been taken up looking after Sophia. So if you are an avid fan of the podcast and you've been wondering where all the new episodes are, I massively apologize, but fear not, because I am now booked solid for most of 2019. So every single Tuesday, there will be at least one new episode, but in most cases, 2. So you are listening right now to the Confidence Academy podcast, in case you didn't know what you clicked on. And you are with Lilli Badcock, and I am here with Leslie Stewart. Leslie, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're breaking all the rules because Leslie and I just got chatting and it's already been amazing, and I feel like it needs to be shared. So I'm just going to be sharing this episode completely raw. And so this welcome is coming in the middle of the episode, and it is what it is. It's my podcast and I can do what I like. Here we have it. But just so you know who you've been listening to, Leslie is, well, you'll have heard it all because we had this conversation at the start. But Leslie is a coach. She's intuitive. She's a healer. And she has a background in sales. And I wanted to bring it back to this point because you'll have heard at the start of this conversation that I asked Leslie how she wanted me to introduce her. And this is something that I often ask people when they come on the podcast. And Leslie said, I struggle with titles because I'm multifaceted. There are many things I can do and there are many headings I fall under. And I'm not comfortable just picking one. And I wanted to circle back to that because I feel like I resonate massively with that. And if the people listening are anything like us, and I know they are, they're going to be going, yes, yes, yes. Like, screw the niche and screw the rules. And why do we have to just be one thing? So the thing I wanted to bring it back to was an analogy that I used recently in a conversation with someone who said exactly this. They came on and they wanted an intuitive hit because they were feeling very torn in the direction of their business. And they were saying, well, you know, I have a background in this, so I could do that. And obviously I'm really good at that, so I could do this. I'm really passionate about this thing and I could do that. And I don't want to pick. And I said to them, imagine that you're stood on the edge of a cliff and there is somebody that's fallen off the edge and they're hanging on by their fingernails and they're screaming for help and you're the only one who can help them. You trying to decide which box you fit in is the same as standing next to that person that's fallen over the edge going, well, I can help you, but should I throw you this rope? Or should I take off several items of clothing and fashion a rope out of that? Or should I run a marathon to the nearest town and find a fire brigade and bring them back to help you? Meanwhile, they're hanging there going, I don't care. I don't care what you do. Just do something. Help me in some way. And I feel like that is a really prominent message for anyone who's listening right now, who's maybe stuck still because they're thinking they have to fit into a box or choose a path. You don't. It's true to say, focus on one thing and all of your energy going there will be powerful. That's true. But what I've learned is it's not about the things. It's not about what you focus on in terms of things. It's about your purpose and it's about who you are at your soul level. Focus on that. That's your one thing. Now, whether you then follow that up with your career in sales that you had, or whether you tap more into your intuition, or whatever you do, as long as at the core of everything you do is this mission, this purpose, this thing that drives you and the entire reason you're here, you're never going to feel like you're out of alignment, and you are going to find the people who need you, and you're going to be hauling people off the cliff left, right and center, and in any way that feels good in that moment. So yeah, I wanted to kick off with that.
I love that analogy. If I can just share really quickly, Lilli, I think sometimes our brain gets so in the way at that place, right? What's my niche? What's my title? So I like to recommend too, what excites you the most when you think of identifying with something, right? Coach or intuitive or whatever. And then, you know, when I first started as a coach, when I left my corporate job, I hired someone to help me. This was a long time ago, like 2007, to help me brand and niche and all that. Yeah. And so I launched myself as a love coach. Mm-hmm. But because I had kind of a corporate background, I was passionate about entrepreneurship at that point, super passionate about coaching, already knew I was super intuitive. Life sent me a lot of women that came from that space that I had just been in, very corporate, and even though they came to me kind of for self-love and getting into a relationship or leaving a relationship, we ended up working on their business. They're on this. So it all works itself out, to your point.
Yeah. And that's perfect.
Yeah.
Totally perfect, because I think, and we were having this conversation, weren't we, just before we kind of semi-went live, even though we're just going to do the whole thing anyway. And we were saying that, you know, you were saying F the how, and by the way, you can totally swear on this podcast. So if it is awesome. Actually fuck the how, you can say that too.
Yeah, it is fuck the how. Fuck the how for now.
The how for now. See, that packs more of a punch for sure. But I think that's the thing. And as we were saying, it's because your vision of how it could play out is one version of how it could go, but it's often a very played down example. You know, I feel like life can be so exciting and so surprising that I've learned, you know, actually when I look back at all the things that worked out and all of the things that led me to the things in my life I treasure the most, not one of those circumstances did I know that that's how it was going to go. Not one time. And the biggest story around that is, obviously, I say obviously, but to anyone who's been listening for a while will know, I'm a singer and a vocal coach, and I have a choir. And I acquired the choir from a group that I was in, and the people running it didn't want to run it anymore. And something made me step forward and say, well, can I carry it on? Prior to that, though, and years before, I was just working in an office, feeling really not fulfilled. And I would come home every night and I would shut myself away in my room and I would just sing for hours and hours and hours. It was all I ever wanted to do. And I always knew I was going to sing. I always knew singing was going to be a big part of who I was and what I wanted to do. And obviously, as a teenager, I went through all the things of thinking I was going to be famous. I thought I was going to be discovered. And I thought, you know, I wrote songs and I recorded them. And it's just, it's what you think. And especially in those days, if you wanted to be a singer, that's pretty much what you did. Now, there are far more opportunities for everyone, not just singers, but dancers and anyone creative. You don't have to get famous to follow your passion. Like, there's loads of ways that can look. But back then, that's what I thought I was going to do. And I remember walking through town one day, and it was actually a dance group that I saw. And they were doing a little dance, and they were promoting auditions for a big show. And they were asking for singers as well as dancers. And so I walked past and I kind of went, oh. And then I got a little bit further down the mall and I thought, no, I'm going to go back. Something made me want to go back. So I went back and I filled out the form and I got an audition and I went along. And when I got there, I was actually one of the oldest ones there, even though at the time, I think I must have been about 17 or 18. But most of them were kids, like 8, 9, 10. Anyway, did the audition, didn't get picked. And because I am who I am,
I went back into the room and I said to them, thank you for seeing me today. Can I have some feedback? Can you let me know why you didn't pick me so I can work on it? And at that point, they suggested that I got some singing lessons, and they gave me 3 names on a piece of paper. And I rang the first lady, and she was absolutely barking mad. A great vocal coach, but so off the wall. And for me to say that, I mean, that's saying something, because I'm pretty zany myself. So, like, if for her to freak me out meant she must have been batshit crazy. So I just didn't resonate, so I didn't go back. And then the second name on the card was a guy called Gareth. And I ended up going for singing lessons, and then I ended up joining his choir. And that choir is what I now have run for the last 12 years. And it is the heart and soul of absolutely everything that I do. And so I had no idea in that moment that that's how it was going to go. And actually, there are so many blanks to be filled into that story. I should probably write a book or make a film or something. Certainly not enough time on this podcast, but at no point was that plan laid out. At no point did I have those steps mapped out. I just knew I loved singing. That's all I knew. And actually, it's stupid now, I was 40 last year. Oh, I have to say last year now. How rude is that? I was 40 last year. And I feel like the last 5 years of my 30s, I was searching for my purpose, and I was searching for what I was meant to do. And I now know that I was doing it the whole time.
Yes.
I feel like this is the message that's been coming through now more prominently. It's that you're probably already doing it, even if you don't realize. And it could be something that you don't give any thought to at all. It comes so easily to you. Or it might be something that, because you didn't plan to do it and it just happened, which was my case, that you think, well, that can't be it because that's just happened by accident. Well, there are no accidents. There is only your path. There's your purpose that you came here with. And I actually now think you cannot fail to do that. You can
you can't. Yes.
You can only fail to acknowledge it, really. And that's basically been my experience. So would you say that's been the same for you? Would you say that that's the same thing?
Yes, I would. In fact, it's funny. I have a funny, that brings to mind a story from my childhood, because I find, and Lilli, and tell me if you find this with the women you work with, we, just like you mentioned, whether it's the entrepreneurs that think, what's my niche or what's my title? We think that the answers lie far outside of us, and that it's this big kind of hunt when it comes to what's my purpose. And often,
right.
I find, right?
Yeah.
And usually it's, like you said, it's right under your nose usually. And if you really need to kind of mine for some more gold, if you don't feel like there's anything in your life right now that you're connected to, a good thing to do is go back to your childhood. What were my interests? What were my passions? And I remember there was a newspaper reporter that came into I think I was in 3rd grade, and interviewed us all with, what do you want to be when you grow up? Question. And my mom was a school teacher at the time, and I was in school, obviously, grammar school. And so I kind of just yelled out, well, I want to be a school principal. And it wasn't really something I'd been thinking of, right? So I go home, I share it with my mom. Hey, Mom, I'm so excited. This is what happened today. And she was very intuitive, and she said, is that really what you want to do, Leslie? And I said, and I thought for a second, and then I instantly said, no, I want to be a talk show host. And she started laughing. But at that time, it was like, I think Phil Donahue, Oprah wasn't out yet.
Yeah.
And I'm not a talk show host today. But what I do in coaching, in working with women, in, when I host a call or something, to even when I was in corporate, in sales, I was all about people. So you can kind of derive, like, to your point, we are always living our purpose, whether it's to inspire, just to love.
Yeah.
And then I think there's different, what's the right word? Like, not levels, meaning like your best and then your worst, but you can kind of turn up the volume on it.
Yeah.
Right? I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. which is largely, I think, about, alignment. And again, for me, one of the things I'm thinking about that I want to bring into my own year this year, Lilli, but that I think is so important for women and people to know, is that following your excitement, following what excites you is actually, and following what's fun is actually part of the path.
Yeah.
But we can kind of get conditioned out of that when we're young. Like, what excites you and what's fun is not what's going to pay the bills.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, I remember people saying that to me because I wanted to sing. I can remember there was like a careers advisor at school, and I remember them saying, what you're going to do, what do you want to do in college, and what you're going to be like later on, what's your job? And I was like, well, I want to be a singer. And they literally said, well, we can't all be Kylie Minogue, so what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. And I think over the years, and especially since self-development has kind of come into its own over the last few years, it's becoming a lot more mainstream. Lots and lots of people are talking about it, which is great. It is great. But I think the downside that I've found has been there's become a real trend for people sharing their rags to riches stories. Mm. I think there was a whole wave of people that were either pulled to do this or just outright told, because it was good for marketing or whatever, that you start with the struggle and then you take people on a journey and you show them the end result. And it's basically, you see it all the time, don't you? You see posts on Facebook and you see adverts, and I mean, even advertising on telly is like this. It's like, oh, look, I'm struggling with this thing. Oh, until I found this, and now I'm not struggling anymore.
Right.
And that would seem like a great thing, because essentially you are highlighting a problem and you're saying you can overcome it. You don't have to stay struggling. And here's how you do that. But if you're into subliminal, like the subconscious, and if you kind of take a moment to think about how that works, then actually every single time you see a rags to riches story, you are subliminally learning that before you win, you have to lose. That before it gets to be easy, it has to be hard. And I think that is something that certainly I took on. It was like you say, well, you can't do that just because it brings you joy. Like, what are you going to do that like paying your dues and all of that? You have to pay your dues. You have to start at the bottom and work your way up. Like, there's this collective belief that you have to struggle and it has to be difficult. And then eventually, if you're lucky, it will become good. It's not a very popular opinion to say, no, just follow your joy. It gets to be easy right from the word go.
Right.
Actually, that's what I'm teaching my children. It's, they do not have to struggle. They will have challenges in their life because that's life. That's what we all signed up for. So it's not about living a perfect, unblemished life where nothing's ever hard. It's not that at all. But it's about, if you see the choice, you don't have to choose for it to be hard. You can bypass that. You can ask for the easier path. And,
right.
That's definitely, something I want my children to grow up and know.
Oh, well, that's the most important thing you could teach them in some ways, And I think that what you speak of there, it's where we are in, as you mentioned earlier, the collective and on the planet, is that everyone's now being called to really allow themselves to live in their higher frequency. If we can talk like frequency and vibration, and that's excitement, joy, happiness, love, peace, and those lower vibrations are that kind of hold us back and keep people stuck. We're all being asked to kind of get out of those now, because now for us to each align to our purpose and really to save the world, not to sound dramatic, but kind of.
Well, no, that is what it is. And the thing about that is with the vibration and with choosing the higher frequencies and with getting yourself into that state, where I'm at with that is, it's not about bypassing those emotions if they are real for you, but it's about a shift in your perception about what that means. So like we were having the conversation about the panic attack earlier, and that I had towards the end of last year. And it was my shift in perception that got me through that far quicker than before, when I had a different take on it. So in the beginning, when I was having panic attacks, I just had the belief, which is quite a common one, that panic attacks are bad and anxiety is bad, and it's something that's going to hold me back, and it's something that's going to define who I am, and that maybe all the plans I've laid out now couldn't happen because I have this thing. Whereas now, I still have it. I still have anxiety, but I see it completely differently. And it's not to say that I don't get sad, or that I don't feel low sometimes, or that I don't get panicked and I don't have anxiety, because I do, but I have a very different opinion about why I have that. I now understand that I signed up for this ride called life, and with it come highs and lows. There are peaks and troughs, and big drops, and then big elevations. And it's almost like when you are sliding down the other side of a high, when that crash comes, there's growth there, there's opportunity there, and it's not the end. And I think that's the real key point that I want to make. It does feel shitty in the moment, but it's never forever, and it's constantly moving, constantly evolving. And that's something that it just helps me, so that if I am having one of those experiences where I'm not feeling so happy, or something didn't work out the way I wanted it to, or anything like that, I can at least take comfort in that moment that this too shall pass, and there will be another elevation, and I will rise, and I will learn, and I will grow. And that's not to bypass the feelings in that moment.
Absolutely.
It's to say, I'm safe to feel these, and I know I'm going to survive it.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I speak frequency and vibration, it's not like from the days of The Secret and just stay happy and high.
Right.
Because we're in a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's about choosing to align and kind of keep your eye on the prize of, what does feel good? There's a saying I like to teach from and live from, which is, what feels light is what is right.
Oh, I love that.
Make a choice. Because our conditioning and it's like so much of this waking up process is just a shedding process, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like shedding the way, like you said, your belief about something, or, conditioning, the way we were raised, all these different things. And so, yeah, I mean, I have a coach right now. I've worked with an energy healer / mentor for about 10 years. And I'm working with my therapist again, because my dad's dying of cancer, and I'm, it's like when I go and sit on her couch, I can just do deep emotional release, which in a safe container, because, in our culture, it's like, and you're so busy, it's hard to just feel your feelings and grieve if I'm grieving, my dad. And so I'm all about staying in the human experience and not bypassing the feelings, because I think that, when we're in those dark moments, when we're in the, at the bottom, whether it's like to use your panic attack, or you're in a hard circumstance, you've lost a job, or, you're breaking up with a relationship, or you're leaving a marriage, or those dark times, they actually, when we move through them, they always bring us so much more if we choose to learn through them as we go along, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to take a moment now and just send you so much love for your dad as well. I'm really sorry to hear that. But
thank you. He's a warrior.
For sure. Yeah. Oh, they all are. Yeah. I have a friend who she's battled it twice and is currently winning. And oh my God, the strength of that person is second to none. It's otherworldly. And we've had some amazing conversations. She's very, very spiritual, and we've had some amazingly deep conversations about what it all means, and you know, and even to the point of, you know, obviously when you find out someone is ill in that way, your human reaction is to go, oh God, no, and you want to hang on to them, and you want them to get better, and you're willing them to get better, and you want them to stay. And I remember having a conversation with her. It was actually after another friend of mine had lost her dad, and and literally just that day we were having the conversation. And I know when I'd heard he'd got ill, my instinct was to pray that he would get better. And as I was mid-prayer, I just had this feeling of, you don't know what you're asking of somebody when you ask them to stay here. And it comes back to what we were talking about. It comes back to the fact that we don't have the full vision. We don't see the full picture.
Right.
We are in the human experience right now. We are having human thoughts. We're in the human realm. And I just had this feeling of, you don't know what you're asking someone when you're asking them to stay. And in that case, he was in, you know, a lot of pain, and we knew we were going to lose him. And my prayer changed in that moment, instead to not wish him to stay here in all of that pain and discomfort, but instead to have as peaceful a passing as he could possibly have, and
right.
to surround all of them in love, and so they still felt connected, even if that human had to leave these humans. And it was an amazing conversation to have.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Profound as you like, and something that I took a lot of comfort in, because it was like, the human part of us is going to mourn the loss of that human, but we don't know that big picture. And my personal belief is there is something so much bigger, and it's, you know, the human vessel that has broken down, but the soul is untouchable.
Yes.
And the soul is tethered as well. We're tethered as souls, and so we really don't lose anybody on a soul level.
We don't. Yes. And thank you for your sending me that love. I went through this actually when I was younger. I lost my mom when I was in my early, like 23, and from cancer. And she was actually a mentor to me who said, I want to work on our spiritual connection over the 2 years she had the disease. She was, had become a therapist after being a school teacher. And I was really angry, to your point, when I was younger. I just wanted her to live. But my spirit already knew, I think, that her soul contract was that she was going to pass from this disease. So that whole experience and journey was one of my initiations into really having that concrete experience myself. I had a spiritual awakening when she transitioned. I felt her spirit. And then right away, I started having connection with her. But it was kind of crazy for me because I'm in my early 20s and my friends just want to go out and party, and no one's lost a parent and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I didn't shut it totally down. And it did wake me up to this whole concept of, this is not a dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
And we're all here for a deep reason, which I always felt since I was a little girl. But this was so my same prayer for my dad when he got diagnosed, my prayer was, I just want him to have as much ease and grace on his journey as possible. And that's my only wish. I do not want to keep him here if he's not meant to be here. So amazing. It's amazingly powerful. And I feel like that conversation we just had is going to be so, I hope, so comforting for people listening who have maybe lost people, or who are maybe in that transition phase right now where they know that someone is going to be leaving them at some point. There's been so much I've experienced myself to solidify that belief I have. And this is not about me preaching a religion or a belief or trying to impose it on anybody else. I truly just believe that to find your faith in whatever you have faith in, and focus on that and hold on to that. And, you know, I lost my nanny last year. It will almost be a year now. And she was, it was really interesting, because growing up,
I always saw my nanny, but it wasn't like a very, very close relationship. And then in the last few years of her life, she got incredibly depressed because she was on her own. She'd lost 2 husbands. A lot of her friends had died. She became withdrawn. And I feel like I drew closer to her, whereas previously, whenever anyone had been ill or old or, you know, looking like they were going to leave, I had distanced myself, like I couldn't be around them. She was the first person where I got closer when we had that feeling. And I mean, she was 94, she had pneumonia, she'd fallen down the stairs, she was in hospital. And so we honestly thought, I mean, as you would at 94, she may not come back from this. She did come back from it, and she lived 2 more years. She came out of the hospital, she got back in her own house, she didn't stay in the home. I mean, speaking of warriors, like, the woman was and is one of the strongest warriors I knew. And I learned so much about so much in those last 2 years. And I honestly feel, I mean, we had conversations in the beginning where she would say, oh, I just want to die. And she was extremely religious. And I remember saying to her, but, you know, Nanny, it's not in your hands. And if you're still here, there's a reason. And I truly believe one of the reasons was to give me more clarity in my mission and what I was doing and the power of it. And I actually started to teach her how to sing at 94 when she'd lost all hope for everything. And then just this little flicker of curiosity about, so what is it you do? Like, how can you teach someone to sing? So I started to explain, and then she started to learn. And that blew a belief out of the water that she was too old. She had this belief, well, I'm 94, I can't learn anything new. And then we blew that belief out the water. And when you do that, suddenly all the other big beliefs they have are like shaken. And she was like, oh. And then I was like, wow, so Nan, I wonder what else you're wrong about. Like, I wonder what else you've been telling yourself that maybe isn't true. You're just telling yourself it's true. And you mentioned this earlier about the conditioning and about what we grow up believing and being told. And actually, I think it's all up for discussion. It's all up for questioning, for sure. And it's almost like the universe wants us to challenge that. That's the growth. That's when you say, yeah, I see what you're saying. And I know 5 million people have done it that way before. But what if I did it this way? And haven't people been doing that the whole time? Like, would we have internet and cars and boats and planes?
Absolutely.
And all the other things if everyone had been happy just to stay believing what they thought was possible? You know, I love it. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, go like Edison and Einstein too, right? I mean, a lot of these people that were huge pioneers and rebels to the culture that were the big inventions were looked upon as crazy because they weren't part of the herd.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah. So we all are here, I think, to leave the tribe in order to individuate. And then sometimes you come back to the tribe where you create your own tribes. And yeah. Well, I could talk to you for hours about this one.
I know. It's amazing. It's amazing. We need to schedule another episode, I think, to cover all of that. I'm just looking for my notes. My little girl had my phone and now she's thrown it on the floor. Doesn't matter. We'll fly without. Whatever. So
she wants to co-host with you.
She does. She's been on every episode. Her dad's just taken her out in the car now to try and get her off to sleep. It hasn't been a restful evening for her because we were playing the Nintendo. So she's like had this clanging music and the kids have been screaming and shouting. So she's gone out for some car journey to get her off to sleep. It's been absolutely amazing. And I think just the perfect conversation to kick off 2019, because I feel like, and I know we said this at the start as well, but I feel like 2018 was for so many people a transformative year and a time where they did start to question those things. They did start to fight back almost and go, well, what if I don't want to sit and just be anxious and depressed my whole life? Like, what if there's more? And I am here to remind all of you that categorically is more. Nobody was put here purely to experience anxiety or purely to experience depression or to feel like they'd failed. All of us were here were put here for a purpose. And actually, I don't even think we were put here. I think we chose to come here. And I think we came with an important mission and a purpose. And how I like to explain this is your soul has a mission, and the chances are it is the same mission that many other souls are on. And I feel like we were talking earlier about the collective and the pod, and I think we are all a collective in that we are all striving for the same thing. But you've dropped into a human that has abilities, and so Leslie's human is different from my human. So your human, Leslie, happens to have a background in sales, and the intuition and everything you've been through in your life makes up your human. And my human just happens to be a singer. And this is how we communicate with the other human beings. What you said earlier about, you know, you were a love coach, but you just happened to call in that tribe of people that were from that background. That's exactly the point. It's your soul was already tethered to theirs. Your soul already called them in. They thought they were coming in for love because that's just what you'd labeled it at the time. But what they came for was actually that deeper thing that you gave them. And it was always going to come through. You could have labeled it absolutely anything and they would have found their way in. And so that's...
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. And I think part of the struggle is I believe the same thing. I think we have a soul contract. We choose our family that we come in with. And then we also forget when we're born.
Yes.
We can forget. So that hence the waking up process. But one thing I wanted to interject too, Lilli, with the fear that I know your listeners really struggle with, the depression, right? Which is, anxiety and depression. And anxiety is just another version of fear, right? It's fear-based. We're either, I believe, coming from fear or love.
Right.
And I think that our greatest fears, when we start to wake up but go into that imposter syndrome, well, who am I to do this? Who am I to do that? Our greatest fears truly become our biggest accomplishments. Yeah. And so what I geek out on is helping women, because what we do is, when you talked about the subconscious mind, you know, our subconscious is running like 90% of the show, right?
Right.
So we can have such deep-seated fear about our purpose sometimes. And we can really get stuck. And I know this from my own life. I'm speaking from myself. We can get stuck. So when I go and I think about doing something, if it scares the you know what out of me, if it scares the shit out of me, I know I can swear here, then I know I'm actually on to something. And so I think sometimes I really wanted just to message that it's like a reframe, you know, it's like a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm not going to, you know, we had lives where we were persecuted when we spoke our truth and shined our light. We had many lives when we couldn't. And so it can be such a deep-seated fear and anxiety, you know, and it doesn't necessarily go away. Like you said earlier, it doesn't go away. It doesn't go, I mean, you hear of, she's a British actress. She's gorgeous. I forgot her name, but she'll show up on a movie set and she'll still say, who am I to be here? Yeah. You know, at the stage fright, like it doesn't go away.
Right. I know. Is it, I'm not very good with actresses, but I know Emma Watson that was in Harry Potter films? She's spoken a lot about that. And Adele, actually, even the singer Adele still. And actually, you know, if you think, you were saying earlier about, you know, Einstein and Edison and all these people, but if you go on the actors and singers and all of those people, so many of them are struggling with massive demons. I feel like it can show up bigger. You know, you said earlier that the more on purpose you get, the scarier it can get, and then the worse the anxiety can be. That certainly would ring true then, wouldn't it? Because so many of our stars and so many of our you know, people that are in the public eye and being seen by so many other people are struggling on such an enormous scale. I think it is just that ability to question it, though. And something that I've noticed about myself now, when I speak to other people who are in that place of struggle, or even sometimes myself, because I'm still human, I still go back and have like wobbly days or whatever. But one of my favorite things to say is, oh, isn't that an interesting belief? Oh, isn't that an interesting perspective? Like, I wonder how long you're going to hang on to that for. You know,
I love that. Yeah.
You really can.
Get curious with ourselves. That's half of it, right?
Yeah, because actually most people would just brush that off. But actually, if you don't allow yourself to brush it off, and if you go, yeah, but what if you could overcome it? What if you could? Oh, but I can't. Yeah, but what if you could? Oh, yeah, well, I wouldn't know how. Yeah, but what if you could? And if you keep like pecking, like, what if you could? What if you could? What if you could? You actually don't know what if you could, because you've never allowed yourself to even think that far. You've got to the fear piece and gone, oh, but I don't know how, or oh, that's scary, or it's just not the dumb thing. And you've allowed yourself to stay stuck there. The people who are like those irritating children that just keep asking, that's me. Like, that's me. I'm like, yeah, but why? Yeah, but why? But why? 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 Why has it got to be that way? Why have I got to have anxiety? Why have I got to have those pills? Why? I don't get it. I don't choose that. That doesn't align with anything I have planned for my life. So I
love that, because you're opening up the thinking, and it's really about expanding our thoughts.
Yeah.
Is part of it, part of the equation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's never about the answer. You never have to get to the answer. You don't get to the end game. There is no finish line. What did I say to someone the other day? When you're done, you're dead. Basically, you know, if you're waiting for the moment that you are done with the challenges and you're done with the growth and the learning and everything that comes with that, then you're passing to the next phase. So I've said this before, and I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, but I'll repeat myself anyway. I honestly feel now that when I'm complaining that life got a bit tough, it's like riding a roller coaster through choice and then complaining that you got spun upside down and twisted about. You know, if you went to any theme park and was like, yeah, I want to lodge a complaint because that roller coaster tipped me upside down and it went really fast, they'd just look at you like you were crazy and be like, but you queued up for it and you willingly got on it and you strapped yourself in and off you went. And you knew you were always coming back, so let it go. Well, I feel like that's what's going to happen if we if we go back to wherever we came from. We're like, oh, it was hard. Oh, there were challenges. They're like, duh, it was the human experience. You signed up for that. Like, get back down there. You haven't learned your lesson.
Right. Yeah, that's why people call it the school of life, right? It's like
totally.
go through these lessons and classes.
Yeah, and hello, reincarnation. They're the people that didn't get it. Like, get back down there. Now you have to be a butterfly to figure it out.
Right. And, you know, and that's what I love about, like, you know, in entrepreneurship, it's like you have to realize that there's going to be a ton of problems always. Right. And so you have to be okay with unfinished, with it, like things are not perfect.
Yeah.
And so much of it, like you're saying, it's just a reframe, like, oh, I have the luxury of figuring out the answer to this, or having someone else help me with this.
Right.
Or, oh my God, I mean, I have the luxury of having these basically first world problems, right? Like all of us that are listening to this right now, like, you know, so it's,
yeah,
I love that.
Oh, I love it. Oh, this week I tell you what, if I ever do a 24-hour podcast marathon, I reckon we could do it. I
like to talk too. We both like to talk, and I love your energy. This has been so fun.
I want to do a 24-hour podcast.
I love that.
How do you hit me up? I don't know, email me or something. If you want a 24-hour podcast with Leslie, let me know and we'll make it happen. We just talk about anything and everything.
Let's do it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for kicking off 2019 on the Confidence Academy
Thank you for
podcast.
having me. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. So just very quickly, let everybody know, let everyone know, we're doing it all backwards. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and how they can connect with you. So if they want to find out more about your work and perhaps connect with you on a personal level, how could somebody do that?
Yeah, thank you. So my website is lesliestewart.com. And I do intuitive coaching and energy healing work within that. So I kind of do a combo of coach and intuitive reader and energy healer. And I really love to help women mostly live into more of their potential and really step into what's calling them, largely by helping them feel safe enough to move forward. Because I think women tend to not move forward until they feel safe, which is a lot of our conversation. And so yeah, lesliekstewart.com, and I'm on Instagram at Leslie K. Stewart.
Amazing. And we'll put those links in the show notes for anyone who wants to connect with Leslie. And I invite all of my guests now to come into the Confidence Academy Members Club as a featured expert. And I know, Leslie, you've said that you'd be up for that. So we will get that scheduled in as well. And so for anyone who doesn't know, the Confidence Academy Members Club is what it says on the tin, basically. It's a way to go a little bit deeper with the conversations and with the trainings that we talk about here on the podcast. We do masterclasses in there each month, and it's a very low cost program. You can come in and out at any time. But for as long as you're a member, you have access to not only the masterclasses coming up, but all of the previous ones as well. And again, I've totally neglected that at the end of 2018, but I'm amping back up for 2019. So for those of you who are in the Members Club, I have not forgotten you. I'm coming back. And in fact, our masterclass for January is all about intuition and tapping into intuition. So keep your eyes peeled for details of that. Again, I will put a link in the show notes as well. It just remains for me to say Happy New Year, Leslie. Thank you so much for being here.
So much fun.
So much fun, and your work is amazing, and I hope we'll stay connected. And I will definitely schedule in that additional training with you, and we'll announce to everybody when that's going to be.
I would love that. Sounds awesome.
Thank you so much to everybody listening. Remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it, and I will be back next week with another episode. Thanks for tuning in. Bye-bye.
Bye.
And just like that, another episode is done and dusted. I hope you've been reminded of just how powerful you really are, and that you can take another step closer to living your true purpose. Just a reminder that if you would like to schedule your free intuitive session with me, please do so using the link in the show notes, where you will also find the links to join the Confidence Academy Members Club and my new free Facebook group, Wake Up, Rise Up. In the meantime, dream big and live bigger. And remember, confidence is yours as soon as you choose it.